You clicked on this video because it promised the ultimate sewing toolkit. And today we're diving into one of the most crucial sewing skills for working with knits, and that is fabric stretch. And I have a secret weapon in my toolkit that makes sewing with knits so much easier and more successful in the end. So let's get started. If you've ever made a knit garment and ended up with a neckband that was too tight or a sleeve cuff that didn't fit quite right, you are not alone, because I've been there too, thinking that the fabric would be fine and without really double checking it against those requirements that are listed in the pattern. And the result was often a project that looked okay, but it felt awful to wear, and it just ended up staying in the back of my closet. So today's free resource is a fabric stretch chart, and it's going to help you avoid those pitfalls that we sometimes fall into with sewing with knits, and it's going to give you some confidence. And the best part about this is that you can grab this tool for free this week during our New Year sale at Love Notions. So this video is part of a special series that we're putting together during our New Year sale to help kickstart your 2025 sewing journey. You're gonna get some practical tools and a little bit of inspiration, and each day we're gonna share a new free resource from this ultimate toolkit, and we're gonna pair it with 2 patterns that show you how to make the most of that tool. So by the end of this series, you'll have everything that you need to plan, to sew, to be productive, to organize your projects, so that you can have a fantastic year of sewing in 2025. And in fact, let's make 2025 your best year yet when it comes to sewing. So let's start our pattern spotlight in this video today with just a few patterns that belong in your sewing pattern library for sure. One of which is really important to use along with this stretch guide that I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you how to use it in just a second, but I want to take a second to spotlight this pattern, and that is the Arlington Sweater. It's a knit pattern. It's a perfect example of why understanding and working with fabric stretch and why that's so important. With this pattern, you're gonna need enough stretch for comfort and for movement, but not so much that the garment gets like sloppy and loses its shape. So it's important to watch that fabric stretch requirement part of the pattern and use this chart to help make sure that your fabric meets those requirements before you even start cutting. Now, on the other side of the stretch spectrum, let's talk about a pattern, the Aria Button Down, that's just sort of on the other side of the spectrum. This is a woven pattern, so stretch is not really a factor. You're not gonna want stretch in this garment. You're gonna sew it with a fabric that doesn't stretch. It's a woven. And in fact, if you tried to sew this fabric with really a woven that even had a slight amount of stretch to it, which some, of course, woven fabrics do have a little bit of stretch to them, you might find yourself really frustrated. So this concept of checking that stretch might seem just like a given in the case of the Aria, but understanding the difference between those woven and knit fabrics and then knowing when to use each is really key to making a successful project, especially if you are a beginner. And even some of the most advanced sewists sometimes forget to check that stretch on both a woven and a knit garment. So this is something that I never really appreciated before I started to sew, the amount of stretch that's needed. And I wish that I had had today's tool printed out next to my cutting table every time I started a project so that I could save myself like a ton of frustration for both knits and wovens. So here's how to use the stretch chart. You're gonna start by measuring a 4-inch section of your fabric. Hold it firmly at each end and then stretch it along this chart to see how much it ends up stretching. If your fabric doesn't stretch correctly, the neckband might feel tight or pull, or it's gonna make puckers, or it's gonna make just the garment feel uncomfortable. So here's a little bit more of a breakdown on our stretch tests on a few more fabric examples. That was a jersey knit. This is a bamboo fleece, and you can be sure to check for both vertical and horizontal stretch, so both two-way and four-way stretch. That could be really helpful for you, especially when the grain line is not going with the stretch like you would assume. That happens a lot in fleece fabrics. I have this sweater knit here that actually had more stretch than I assumed it would, but getting that read on the guide was really helpful for me in deciding what project to match it with. Again, check both vertical and horizontal stretch to be sure that you're working with what you want to be working with. This is a bamboo stretch French terry. Checking the grain line to see which way to put it onto my stretch guide. I'm going to hold it in place, pull it down as far as I can, and you can see that that one had really great recovery because it bounced right back. This is a velour. I'm holding it down, stretching it down as far as I can, and then letting it go. Now, this is a shirting fabric, so this is a non-stretch. You can kind of check the technical stretch of your woven fabrics too, just to make sure that they're not going to be moving too much for you. For a project like Aria, I would want to make sure it had no stretch at all, not even mechanical stretch. So here's another place where I'm going to check both the vertical and horizontal. You can see here we've got quite a bit of stretch going that way, but when we check the other way, we really have minimal stretch. So you'll note that this pattern, this fabric guide has a 4-inch chart and a 3-inch chart, and it's also got a neckband chart that's really going to help you out if you struggle with matching your fabric for your neckband to the neckline, making sure that you can't anticipate every situation in a pattern with fabric, but this guide should help you end up with a make that is just perfect for you and the fabric that you've got. So take a look at that little chart for making a great neckband as well on this guide. So see how easy that is? Mastering fabric stretch is really a game changer for sewing with knits. And this little chart makes it super easy. So you can grab it for free with any purchase during our current New Year Love Notions pattern and course sale. Just use code NEWYEAR30 at checkout. And this sale is only gonna last a few days, so don't miss out. And we're gonna be adding a new tool every single day. Arlington and Aria are two must-have patterns, but I'm curious, what are your other must-haves right now? Don't forget to subscribe to this channel so that you don't miss out on the next video in this series. And we're gonna be tackling pattern organization with another must-have resource that was highly, highly requested. If you have any other suggestions for handy tools that should be in our sewing toolbox, please let me know in the comments. What would be handy to have at your sewing machine? We'd love to continue to develop this for sewists of all levels. So, all right, everybody, that's it for me right now. Let's go make this year our best yet for sewing.